I have a client who had the same fight with her partner for almost 10 whole years. Same argument, same night, same result. It wasn't until she finally shut up, genuinely shut up, right, that she heard something that ended the fight for good. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, but first, I need to talk about why most women in struggling relationships are doing the opposite of what they think they're doing when they try to communicate. Because the problem isn't usually what you're saying. Because the problem isn't usually what's being said. It's that we're not actually listening. I'm Danielle Grace, certified life coach and founder of Graceful Mastery, where I work with self-aware women who are done spinning their wheels and ready to actually shift their relationship dynamics. Today, we're talking about active listening, and not in a soft, therapeutic, like nod and validate kind of way. I mean the real version, the uncomfortable version, the version that requires you to put your own ego down long enough to actually hear another human being. By the end of this video, you'll understand the difference between hearing and listening, what it's really costing you when you confuse the two, and what real listening looks like in practice, not just theory. Let's get into it. So here's what's actually happening in most relationship conversations. One person starts talking, and within about 2 sentences, the other person has already started loading the rebuttal, loading the defense, loading the thing you've been wanting to say since before they even opened their mouth, mentally sorting what they're saying into a pile that proves you're right and the pile that doesn't matter. Their mouth is still moving. You've already left the building. That's not listening. That's waiting. And there's a major difference. Real listening requires something most people are not willing to give up in a heated moment. And that's the certainty that they already know where this is going. Because here's what I've noticed in my work with women. The ones who struggle the most in their relationships are often convinced that they know their partner. They know what he's going to say. They know what he means. They know his motives. They've had this conversation 100 times. And it's always the same, except what if it isn't? What if the thing that you're so certain about is the very thing blocking the connection you actually want? When you walk into a conversation already knowing how it ends, you're not having a conversation, you're performing one. And the person across from you can feel it. The flatness, the sense that nothing they actually say lands, the reason they start giving you shorter and shorter answers and eventually stop bringing things to you at all. Not because they don't want to talk to you, but because they've learned somewhere along the way that the conversation is already over before it begins. Think about the arguments you keep having, not the surface level issue, right? Not the bills, the chores, the thing that started it. Go one level underneath that. What's the actual recurring feeling in those arguments? Usually it's some version of, I'm not being heard, you don't see me, and you don't care the way that I need you to. And here's what I want to offer. There's a very real possibility that your partner is feeling the exact same thing, that both of you are in the same room having the same conversation, and neither of you is actually receiving what the other is saying. Because you're both so focused on being understood by the other person that neither of you is doing the work of understanding. The fights that repeat are rarely about the thing they appear to be about. They're about two people who feel unseen. And that doesn't get fixed by being louder. It doesn't get fixed by making a better argument or saying it more clearly or bringing receipts. It gets fixed by one person deciding to actually stop and listen. I told you at the beginning of this video that I had a client who had the same fight with her partner for almost 10 years. Her name is Lindsey. The fight was about the bills, probably super familiar. She wanted him to take some of them over. He wasn't doing it the way she wanted, so she'd bring it up. Why wouldn't she communicate? She's a verbal processor. It needs to be said. But he'd get defensive. Nothing would change. Rinse and repeat for a decade. One night after we started working together, it started again. And something shifted in Lindsey. She stopped talking. Not because she gave up, not because she had nothing to say. She had plenty to say. But for once, she didn't say it. She got quiet. And she stayed quiet long enough for him to actually speak. And what came out of his mouth changed everything and gave me chills. He said, I used to command battalions. Now I command nothing. 10 years. And she had never heard that before. Not because he was hiding it, but because there had never been enough space for it to even surface. Every conversation had been filled with her frustration, her explanations, her version of what needed to happen. And in all of that noise, his truth never had a place to land. That one sentence reframed the entire decade of arguments. This was never really about the bills. It was about a man who felt like he had nowhere left to lead, and a woman who, without knowing it, had been filling every possible space where his leadership could have shown up. She didn't know that. She couldn't have known that because she had never stopped long enough to actually hear it. So what does real listening actually look like? Because I want to be specific here, because there are different types of listening and most people have never been taught the difference. So the first distinction is the most important one. We have listening to respond, and we have listening to understand. Most people in most conversations, especially the hard ones, are doing the first one. They're tracking just enough of what the other person is saying to find their opening, to land their point, to defend their position. The other person is still talking and they're already formulating, already loading, already halfway out the door of the actual conversation. Listening to understand is something completely different. It means you're receiving what someone is saying with the actual goal of getting it, not countering it, not filing it, not deciding how you feel about it yet, just taking it in. And then we have passive versus active. Passive listening is really just hearing. Sound is entering your ears, you can repeat it back, the last few words, but you're not actually present. You're somewhere else in your head while the noise of the conversation happens around you. Active listening is a full contact activity. You're tracking not just the words, but the tone, the pauses, what they're circling around, what they're not quite saying yet. You are in it. Most people think that they're doing this, but they're actually doing this. Now, the second thing I want to say about real listening, and this one's probably going to sting a little, so prep yourself. You do not actually know what your partner is going to say. I know you think you do. After months or years together, you've had enough versions of this conversation that you've written a script, basically, and you've assigned him his lines. And the moment he starts talking, you're no longer listening to him. You're listening for confirmation of the script you've already written. And the script is the thing that needs to go. Because as long as you're following it, you're not in a real conversation. You're in a performance of a conversation. And the curiosity that real connection requires, genuine, open, I don't actually know where this is going, curiosity, that cannot exist inside a script. Lindsey had a 10-year script. She thought she knew exactly what that fight was about. She had been wrong for a decade. And the third piece of this is silence. Real listening requires you to let silence exist. And I want to be honest with you about why this is hard, because it's not just awkward. For a lot of people, silence is genuinely uncomfortable. There's an almost physical urge to fill it, to say something, anything, to keep the air moving. But I want you to look at that urge honestly, because filling the silence is not a communication skill. This is not you like doing good with communication or over communicating, right? It's a fear response. Some people cannot sit with their own thoughts. The quiet brings up feelings they don't know what to do with, so they talk through it. They fill every space with their voice because the alternative, just sitting in it, feels unbearable. But what that actually communicates to the person across from you is my discomfort matters more than your space to think. It shows how focused you are on managing your own experience instead of being present for someone else's. Silence is where the real things come out. It's where someone finds the word they couldn't find yet. It's where the safe answer gives way to the true one. Lindsey stopped talking, and in that silence, a man said something he had probably needed to say for years. Give people silence, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Silence is not weakness. Shutting up is not giving in. It is one of the most powerful things you can offer another person. The experience of actually being heard fully without an agenda. When your partner feels genuinely heard, something opens up. The guard comes down. The short answers you've been getting for so long get longer. The real conversations start happening. That's not a coincidence. That's what connection feels like. Not two people performing their point of view at each other, two people who are willing to get quiet enough to actually let each other in. If you're having the same fights over and over and nothing is changing, it might not be the words. It might be the listening. If this hit home for you, there's a free training linked in the description. It walks through the framework I use with my clients to help them transform how they show up in their relationships, starting with themselves and not their partners. Click that link, watch it. If it speaks to you, we can talk about what it looks like to work together. Like this video if it gave you something to think about. Subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next one. And speaking of patterns that feel like accountability but aren't, my next video is about why self-judgment is keeping you stuck. If you've ever felt like you know what you need to change but keep ending up back at square one, that one's for you.